saw an interesting article that kind of talked about like if everybody followed the Dave Ramsey plan and nobody was in debt and nobody used credit cards, like what would that do to the U.S. economy in general? It is definitely a hypothetical because I think the richest people in this world operate in debt. Like their whole concept is debt.
You're listening to Legacy Through Literacy, where we dissect the philosophy of money one mindset at a time. From uncovering why we settle for our current financial standing to facing the fears that keep us from taking that first crucial step, we tackle the beliefs that are holding you back. Guided by insights from legendary thinkers and today's financial trailblazers, we don't just talk about change, we empower you to own it. This isn't just talk, this is Legacy Through Literacy.
Well, hello, my friends and family that are friends. This is Eddie, and you are listening to Legacy Through Literacy. Today, I wanted to kind of touch base from the last episode. We had an event not too long ago. The people that had came brought a couple of younger people. They brought their daughter, who was only 14 at the time. We did the discussion, and I saw her watching fairly intently, more than what your average 14-year-old will probably look at sometimes. And when we brought a couple of them out to a convention, we had a big convention out in California, and they were, the younger teenager crowd was so bored out of their mind, which you kind of expect, you know, with today's world and how people kind of just deal with reality. It's not saying there's anything wrong with it. People are people. There's adults that don't really pay attention to why it's important to be financially literate. I think a lot of people, I saw an interesting article that kind of talked about like if everybody followed the Dave Ramsey plan and nobody was in debt and nobody used credit cards, like what would that do to the U.S. economy in general? I think the general political discussion of that is one definitely to be had. I don't necessarily think that it is definitely a hypothetical because I think the richest people in this world operate in debt. Like their whole concept is debt. Learning to play the financial market in a way that you don't take an income, but you take stock options because that way you don't own anything and then you can do whatever you want. So there's definitely games that need, if you don't understand the rules, the games that are being played are going to be way over most people's heads. But this 14-year-old drew an interest in what I was talking about. And I thought to myself that like, this is one of those moments where this really does make sense to me. Like, this is what my thing is. This is where I want to be focused. This is what I want people to understand. And the biggest part of it is that I believe that there is a huge detriment to the middle class in the United States and probably around the world from what I've seen from other economies or economists talking about different areas. And a lot of this does stem from economic stuff that some of us, we don't have control over, but there are some things that we do have control over. And one of those things is becoming financially literate in the way that can benefit our working class people and our working class families. And not only that, but allow them the first step stool to being able to avoid the same pitfalls that we've actually had to endure as a working class family. My kids know a little bit like about like credit cards and stuff because I kind of like we coax them kind of avoid that kind of debt. But it's like that's, I think for the most part, don't really talk about a little bit with stocks, crypto, a little bit of dabbling here and there is stuff that I've worked on personally. But it's not like there's a massive attempt to try to help everyday people in this kind of stuff. One of the things that my aunt's in this business with me, and she went on to, I think it was Fidelity, one of the investment firms, and she was just kind of looking at like to be a new client, how much money they want. They want $500,000 to invest with Fidelity, and I mean, you could start your own account to do stuff, and I know there's places that will do less. Like you can go, I know there's a couple places in Grand Junction, Edward Jones buildings, offices where there's financial advisors and their financial planners you can work with, and they'll guide you through that stuff. Which is, again, I want this to complement that knowledge. I want this to be part of, if you are interested in financial services, educate yourself. And this focuses more, the podcast has an overall mentality just about entrepreneurship and just the knowledge of why it's important to not only focus on being a business person, but also to have an idea of what's available to us as business owners, as business representatives. Like there's a lot of room to kind of help you grow in certain places. Obviously, you've got any type of distractions or bureaucracies that you got to deal with. If you've got like brick and mortar buildings, whole different monster. But I wish you all well if that's your thing. I root for so many local businesses in town all the time. But as far as financial literacy, one of the biggest thing is that we're just trying to help people navigate the modern finance world and being able to help them understand what their options are and kind of how you should potentially look at your future retirement. Check out the book by David Wright, The Power of Zero. It's a good book. I think I've mentioned it a couple times on this, but that gives you kind of an idea on why it's important to navigate away from the traditional W-2 job. At the very least, have an additional job just so that you are a business owner and that you have the liability of a tax write-off and the liabilities of self-ownership and all that stuff. Talk to your accountants. I'm not a tax advisor. It's not something I do, but I do work with a tax person, and feel free to message me. If you're in Grand Junction, Colorado, I'll help you out. That's no problem. So make informed decisions on everything you're doing. One of the things when I was talking to her, this 14-year-old, was that she's a creative type. That's like so many of us anymore. We're more creative types than nobody wants to be the trade worker, even though I think there are people out there, and kudos to you, not knocking that in any way. I do think that a lot of us have this thing about she wants to be an author, and she has a storyboard that she's been working on. She's 14 right now. But her thing is she was probably going to have to find a job, maybe take some classes to learn how to write and find a little part-time job, but she wants to focus on this book. And I was like, yeah, this is why you would pay attention to these kind of things, because what kind of programs are there out there for people that are artistic? What things do you have at value to you that will help you not only support your dream of your dream job, but also benefit you in a way that if you got sick or something happens to you, that you're not laid up and have to sell everything and get rid of everything you've earned. You know, what things do you have that are protecting you? Like I said, I'm a licensed life insurance agent in Colorado, so that's what a lot of my focus is making sure that people are protected in the event of a catastrophic event. You can find me with Logos Financial Literacy on Facebook, Instagram, and you can email me. My links are all on those web pages. The overall economic situation in the U.S. right now is that this next generation will be the first generation to not meet their parents' financial outcomes. So most generations tend to do a little bit better than the previous generations. Generational wealth, if you know anything about that. This is going to be like one of the first generations. People are leaving the house older and older. They can't afford a place to live, older and older. And if they can't afford a place to live, they usually have to take on 2 to 3 jobs to be able to pay for that property. And you shouldn't have to work all the time. But if you are going to, why not take advantage of being your own business person and creating your own functions? And this was kind of the thing that I was telling her. It's like, you're young, especially in the insurance realm. Insurance is super cheap the younger you are. As you get older, if something happens to you, you can go from being insurable and being super cheap to not being insurable at all, or just being exorbitantly expensive, like ridiculously expensive. And there's no, I hate to think that like we could have avoided those kind of situations. And it seems like 90% of all the stuff that happens randomly, and then all the financial pitfalls that we run into, is stuff that could have been kind of protected. And obviously lots of systemic stuff, whole different discussion, whole different podcast. Something I've actually talked about on the other podcast, TBD Network, if you're ever interested. But breaking the cycle of poverty is going to have to start with at least some understanding of our current financial system, because we do not have a very good education, public education system, at least in America, that teaches those kind of things. Maybe there is like charter schools. I don't know what the curriculum is at charter schools. From what I've talked to from some of the high school graduates from charter schools, doesn't appear like they're any better off than any kid that goes to public schooling. College kids, everybody talks about going to trades and doing all that. Nothing wrong with that, but please make sure that you have some kind of investment account where you're putting your money into that account and not with your company, because a lot of the time when you transfer jobs, rolling over, if you don't realize you don't do that fast enough. Like I just do the last job I just left. I left my last W-2 job, and I had money in that 401, and I didn't respond fast enough, and they cashed it out, so I had to pay the taxes on it. So I was like, damn it! And so I got the penalty, and I had to pay the taxes on it. So like obviously when I started doing this, and I started realizing like the tax incentives on this side, I'm like, well, shoot. We have to learn more. I really do. At least I have to learn more. And you're welcome to join with me, because I try to learn as much and as deeply as possible. I am a student of philosophy, and I could probably be a political science major at this point with the number of books and podcasts, historical stuff that I read and pay attention to. But I like this business thing. And like I said, I dive in 100% when I learn something new. I want to be fully educated. So books and anything that's financially related, a lot of this stuff I've been absorbing on a day-to-day basis, hours at a time. It's not that audiobooks are wonders. Like if you're not a reader, but you can sit and listen to an audiobook, I suggest, even if like I got a lot of people that tell me I can't do audiobooks because my brain turns off and then I stop paying attention, then turn it off. Listen, just like reading. When you read a book, they tell you if you read even just 5 minutes a day, just do 5 minutes, 5 minutes, 5 minutes, and some days push 10 minutes, and then build yourself up to some kind of reading tolerance. You'll be able to read. Same thing with audiobooks. You know, you start off, you got to do like 5-10 minutes. If your brain starts to kind of turn off, I do it a lot while I'm driving. So if I start to realize I don't realize what's happening in the book, I'll just go listen to something else or put on some music or something, and then I'll come back to the book later on when I know I'm more focused and ready to absorb some more information. But teaching our next generation and seeing the interest in there, like I've got several clients right now that are under the age of 21, which is crazy to me, because the way people talk about these kids and the way people talk about like these younger generations, y'all don't know what you're talking about. They're thirsty, and I think they are interested. They just don't know. They don't have the guidance, and it's because a lot of our generation has given up on them or chosen that for some reason they're not important anymore. And I don't understand why you would think that. Like I said on the last show, we are always one day closer to being dead. So why you don't take advantage of your life to lift up everyone around you and to bring forth as much wisdom and knowledge and try to share that with people is kind of, it's a weird thing. It's a weird thing. I don't understand it. But thanks again for listening. My name's Eddie. You're listening to Legacy Through Literacy, and I'll talk to you on the next one. Peace.